feel when your numbers go up and they hear you. They start following your message cause they feel you. Haters in the rear view wanna ruin plans. Don't be startled, they just low-key fans. They tight like bands on a fresh stack. Knowing Rolo runs the city, bringing hip-hop back for the 51st year with my loquacious bands. Now this ain't no love.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host Rolo, and I am glad to be back with you for another episode. Man, it's been wild and man, it's been hectic, but man, it's been a great ride. So without further ado, we're going to get started with this show. But let's start with the particulars, of course. If you guys are going to hit me up, feel free to do so on the socials, man. I'm at Rolo Runs the City Music as well as Rolo Runs the City Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget X at Rolo Runs the City. And of course, if you're looking at me on the YouTube, you just go ahead and hit up at Rolo Runs the City. I am right there. Music, podcasts, we're there. And wherever you get your streaming at, man, you either hit up the podcast or you hit up the music. Rolo Runs the City will bring you to both. And without further ado, we're going to get started with the show. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, RoloRunsTheCity.com. That is my website. That is the home address. That's where we're at. Feel free to hit me up. We're there. But today we're talking about the comeback, the turning rock bottom into a launch pad. And I felt that this was going to be a great topic to bring up today. And the reason being is because we've all hit rock bottom. And if you think you haven't hit rock bottom and you're not hitting it yet, trust me, it will come. It happens to everybody. You know, whether if it's health, finances, you know, questioning your faith and whatever your faith may be. It definitely hits your physicality and, you know, your physical fitness where you hit rock bottom. I'm telling you, like, at a point where I've hit rock bottom, of course, you guys already know where I've been the past few months in reference to trying to recover from an injury. And, of course, like I said, man, rock bottom is a place that everybody is quite familiar with. If you don't think that you're familiar with it, then you're in Delulu land because you might be there right now and not realizing it. But anyway, I just wanted to heart, man. Everybody loves a success story, but nobody wants to talk about rock bottom. And the reason why I say that is because we're in a social media world right now where you see all of these influencers on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm making this 7-figure multi-million-dollar income, and look at how I do faceless videos on YouTube, and this is what I'm doing when I'm off. And they're showing like they're on like some sort of a yacht or, you know, driving a Bugatti, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, I really believe that a lot of these folks are renting a lifestyle, trying to sell you the lifestyle, so then that way they can monetize big time. Here at Rolo Runs the City, we're not about that. We're about the grit. We're about the grind. And at the end of the day, we're all about improving oneself. So I'm going to give it to you straight. A lot of people, a lot of times may get offended with my approach and my style and how I do things. But at the end of the day, the way I look at things is that I try to be my best authentic self. And I'm not going to double down, and I'm not going to apologize for the person that I am, just simply for the fact that I like to be as truthful as I possibly can be. I know that I'm one of the most flawed individuals ever in the existence of human beings. Okay? But I truly feel that if you could recognize that you're severely flawed, recognizing the problem is a part of the solution. Not knowing that there's a problem, and of course there's one that's evident, well, like I said, the Lululand is where you're living. So you don't want to be that way. But anyway, you know, I've had my rock bottom moments like all my life, okay? And I'm not saying that I'm the only one that goes through this experience. Everybody is going through the shared experience of hitting rock bottom. Everybody's been through their stuff. Whether you want to go ahead and chronicle about it and create a journal, daily vlog, diary, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, everybody has their story. Whether if you want to document that or not is solely on you. But like I said, I'm not an anomaly. I mean, everybody is going through their thing. It's just up to you whether if you want to go ahead and bring it to the forefront or not. But I'm going to. So, I've been through several situations, obviously, in life. You guys already know I grew up very, impoverished. That's not a secret. But at the end of the day, they always tell you, is it you're born, I guess it was you're born poor by chance, but dying poor is by choice. That's a true statement. So, and I'm just talking about people, they go through, financial hardships, they go through mental hardships because a person may be wealthy financially. They could be really piss poor when it comes to their moral standpoint and how they carry on in their character and just how they go about doing things. So I'm going to talk about some rock bottom moments with me. I recall when I bought my first home, it was during the housing bubble of '08. And, we lucked up on a beautiful home, 5 bedroom, split foyer. And it was a nice, it was a nice home. It was a beautiful home. My daughter was she was extremely young at this time. She was a baby. I mean, toddler when we moved into this home. She was probably less than 2 years old. Yeah, she's probably about a year and some change. And my wife and I, we absolutely love this home. However, we had been together probably 5 years at this time, and we were so far apart. The house was a big house, and I mean, she had her own living room suite. I had mine. She was upstairs, I was downstairs, whatever. Um, very nice home. Uh, Basically, what I'm just trying to say is we ended up foreclosing on that home. We foreclosed on that home. I mean, we were just getting to a point where we hit rock bottom. We could no longer make the payments. I mean, stuff was, very volatile back in '08, and we held on as long as we could. We bought it during a recession, and things continue to just, go downhill. And unfortunately, about 4 years later, we ended up foreclosing on that home, as well as vehicles being repoed. Like, I had a truck that I absolutely loved, and it got repoed. And at the end of the day, I truly think to myself, was it the economical situation? We could use that as a scapegoat if we want to. But was I truly stepping my game up? And I wasn't, unfortunately. And that's why I was succumbed to such a situation. I recall during that time period, I went through a job loss. And my wife went through a job loss. And we both did not have a job. We were both literally on unemployment at this time. And obviously, unemployment's like bare minimum, doesn't scratch the surface on what you're accustomed to making. And her and I got to a point where we were trying to scrounge up change so we can buy our daughter something nice for Christmas. And we bought her a little kitchenette toy set. And I mean, it was really all the money we had. And at this time, we were missing payments on mortgage and everything, just so our daughter can have a nice Christmas. And I'll never forget, man, that year motivated me so much to want to just work my ass off. So then that way, I said, my daughter's never going to have to be subjected to a Christmas like this ever again. And like I said, it takes a certain mindset. It really does. So my thing was, I'm like, you can't keep living the same way and expect a different result if the result that you're seeking is not the result that you're getting. So at a point in time, I got fed up. My wife got fed up. She went back to school. She started grinding. She was like in school full time, not part time, in school full time, working full time. And I was working full time. And at that point, we said, this Christmas that we just experienced, we're never going to let this happen again, ever. Not while we got a breath in our body. So we had a mindset shift. And I mean, it was tough, like I said, you're going through foreclosure, you're going through repo, Christmases are just kind of just bad. Let's just put it that way, you know, and, it was time for a change. You know what I mean? And that's just basically what it comes down to. But, like I said, everybody hits rock bottom. And if you think you haven't hit it yet, trust me, you will. That's the life experience. Like, welcome to the world. Like, that's just what it is. But at the end of the day, we ended up realizing that it wasn't over. Like, it's true what the statement says. You've survived 100% of your worst days. And that's an absolute truth. It wasn't over. It was just a reset. And it was wild. The way we reset it, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But I mean, we let everything go. I'm talking about the house, the trucks, everything. We said we're tired of trying to keep up with these bills that we can't keep up with. So everything that went to collections, a whole bunch of crap. I mean, it was just a mess. But I know I started working at a place doing roofing distribution and all that other stuff. It was something that I had done, prior to the recession that we experienced back in '08. And I started, making my money again. And I wasn't making bad money. It was to a point where we were in a surplus again, thank goodness. It was to a point where I forgot when payday was. And that's always, those are good problems to have. Like, they would always say, oh, Ro got money because he don't even know when payday is. While everybody's like trying to harp on trying to make it to the next week for payday. But, with that being said, like I said, it takes a certain experience to go through to realize what's important and what's not. And at the end of the day, I was thinking to myself, what's important to me is the fact that I have my family. And nothing trumps family. I'm sorry. You got God, you got your family. Everything else is just menial. So that was my approach on that. But rock bottom is not a bad place to be at when you feel that you need to be humbled. And trust me, at that time, I needed to be humbled big time. Because I was walking around, I was strutting like I was untouchable. And obviously, that's not the case. You're obviously touchable. You're a physical being. You can be touched at any time. So I felt that rock bottom was good for me because I needed that. I needed to be humbled. It allowed me to take a different perspective of not how I was and where I was at that point, but how other people looked at me. And it allowed me to see a lens from what other people may have been seeing. And they're like, look at this cocky guy. Look at this dude. This dude is bound for failure because of the fact that he walks around like he's got FU money. And he doesn't. And morally, he doesn't seem like he needs to be where he's at. And unfortunately, I wasn't really in tune with my creator. I wasn't in tune with myself. I wasn't honoring my family the way I should have. And we all go through these things. You know what I mean? And once we decided to go ahead and turn rock bottom into a launch pad, that let me know, I said, discipline is everything. I have to be disciplined with what I put in my mouth. I have to be disciplined with just absolutely everything, with how I move my body. Basically controlling my controllables, everything internal. I can't control the external world, but I can control how I respond to certain things. But anyway, there was a lot of lessons that were learned in that darkness, I mean, losing my home, losing my vehicles, a whole bunch of financial stress. All that stuff almost cost me my marriage. And I'm being very honest, because you can be very honest. You ain't got to lie. At the end of the day, like, who are you for me to, like, tell you lies when God sees all? You know what I mean? So that's really my take, man. I mean, I was at a point where financial stress will do that to you. And I mean, I was also hospitalized because of my diabetes. All this stuff came like tumbling down. And it's a rough, it's rough, man. I mean, it's rough when you're trying to do what you got to do to make it in every facet of life, but you got, your finances are just tearing down, your relationships are like eroding, and it's not a good place to be. And anybody would want to think about the worst case scenario and possibly think about doing the worst case scenario, but that's too easy. Like they say all the time, death has to be easy because life is extremely hard. And a lot of people fear death, but you're scared to live. You're not living your life the way you should live. So my thing is, don't ever try to make harm to yourself because of a situation that's going to eventually pass. Everything is temporary, including this life. But rock bottom carries a lot of lessons, man. I mean, are you willing to learn from them? It's like, okay, if you know you made a bad financial decision here, you're going to make that same financial decision again and again and again and again. Yeah, a lot of people do that, unfortunately, and they shouldn't. At the end of the day, they should be thinking about learning from the mistake and moving forward. But a lot of us get caught in this paradigm where if it's a familiar feeling, like people who live in scarcity, they always find a way to be in scarcity because it's a comfortable feeling. It's where they've been. They're comfortably uncomfortable and not in the right way. It's not like they're, out there hiking 50 or 60 miles and they're trying to get after it because they're trying to search what's their true meaning in their life, and they're trying to figure out all these answers. Because trust me, when you go on a long run or a hike or whatever, man, every answer that you end up popping up in your head gets answered because of the fact that you have nothing but time to think. But it snowballs the other way. You know what I mean? So a lot of people always ask, why me? Instead of saying, where do we go from here? Like me, I always talk about you spend about 60 seconds on realizing that the problem is there. Then you spend the rest of, excuse me, you spend the rest of the time attacking, in attack mode of where we go from here. This is what needs to get done. And you start implementing a plan. Come on, man. You guys have so much accessibility now to information with your smartphone. The internet has just come, I mean, I want to say 300,000% improvement compared to what it was when it first really started up in 95. Like I remember the first computer I seen that had America Online was Packard Bell. This is old school right here, man. But it is what it is, man. I ain't got to be ashamed to tell you my age. But anyway, man, there's so much that's going on in reference to technological advances on why we should no longer be stagnant as human beings. But the problem is a lot of people are relying on their technology as opposed to using it as a tool to enhance their lives. So that's one of the things that you need to be thinking. Not why me, it's where do we go from here? 60 seconds on the problem. Okay, this is what it is. You spend the rest of your time trying to figure out how we're going to get this thing solved. It just is what it is. But anyway, you have to really think you're already going through pain. You might as well seek a reward from it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that they do things, they get somewhere halfway, and then they stop. Like, and this is in reference to running. It happens in life, but I'm going to use a running aspect. I felt bad. I remember I did a half marathon in November on Thanksgiving Day. And I seen a guy, and a half marathon is 13.1 miles. And I seen a dude, he was at mile 12. Crazy, right? Mile 12. And we're getting ready to head back toward Georgia State because that's where the finish line is at, over in Georgia State, out in Atlanta. And at mile 12, this guy he had, I don't want to say he was on a stretcher, but I know he had medical attention. They were getting ready to take him to in an ambulatory vehicle. And he had just looked distraught. He looked like he was in pain. He looked like he was pissed because he was so close and he couldn't finish. And he also looked relieved at the fact that he was getting up and just leaving. So you could tell it was just a mixture of emotions that the guy was going through. But I seen him as I was passing by him, and he gave me a thumbs up, and I gave him a thumbs up back. And I felt bad because I was like, damn, he was so close to the finish line, and he didn't even get to finish. And he's going to go back there, and, he's not going to get his medal. He's not going to get a finishing time. And, those things are kind of like a byproduct of just finishing, but they're not really like the end-all, be-all. But for the most part, he'll always have in himself, which is the most vital thing that you can experience, that he didn't finish. He was so close and he didn't finish. So my thing is, if you're going through pain and you're going to go through it, dude, cross that finish line and then deal with it after. I remember when I was going through my own experience with my own pain, and I'm telling you, like, I ran almost 20 miles in pain because this thing hit me at mile 7. And I said, damn, I almost got 20 miles to go to finish this marathon. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this. And I'm telling you like this, I dragged my ass to that finish line and I got done. And it wasn't the time that I wanted to. I think I clocked in at like 5 hours and 43 minutes, which I was planning on just smashing that time, obviously. But I said, damn it, not bad for a dude that ran who can barely run at that point. And like I said, I couldn't stop. And the time that I stopped on like mile 22 was when I kind of like stopped running and started walking. And I've never done that in a race. But I had no choice because I said if I know I stop earlier than that, I'm not finishing. So that was a rock bottom point for me, obviously. But of course, I mentioned many rock bottom points that I've went through. But you got to develop a toolbox, man, and start winning. You really do. I mean, you have to talk about your controllables. I talked about it earlier. What you put in your mouth, how you move your body, and basically how you respond to certain situations. You know what I mean? And you really have to control, especially with the diet side, what you put in your mouth. And also with running your mouth, don't put your foot in your mouth. The controllables. Be careful with what you do and how you respond to things. Don't react, respond. And I always try to make sure that I do that. But also, a part of that toolbox is absolutely cutting out toxicity. That could be people, and that could also be the content that you consume. Content consumption is a bad thing to have when toxicity is being flowed your way. You don't want to do that. You want to do things that begin to empower you. And what you consume matters. And that's what you put in your pie hole. And it's also what you're viewing from your doom scrolling. You know, you could listen to some inspirational podcasting, like mine, I would like to say. But if you don't listen to mine, that's okay too. You could definitely listen to a lot of other people that are in the personal development space that are actually trying to enhance humanity as opposed to corrupt it. So I know things are funny and we like to have a mental break because we don't want to go through mental burnout, especially when it comes to things of this nature, as in trying to enhance and better ourselves. But at the same time, you have to be very careful and safeguard your mind, because if not, if you let trash in your mind, you'll put trash in your body, and then you're going to live a trash life. Definitely don't want to do that. But you have to have a comeback mindset, man. I'm going to tell you just like this. Just like I told you where I hurt myself at mile 7, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get mile 10 and then it'll be over with. No, dude, you're running a marathon. 26.2, get it done. Okay? And obviously, you know, the human body's more capable than running longer than 26.2. There's people that do 200, 300-mile races at a time where they're running 4 or 5 days at a time. You know, I would love to get there someday. Whether if I get there or not, I don't know. We'll see. I don't limit myself, so we're going to see what happens. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to rehab and do what we need to do to get things done. But what I am trying to tell you is that the race ain't over. You hit mile 10, you need to go ahead, pick your ass up, and get over that finish line. You know what I mean? You still got running to do. And that's in reference to life. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? So you have to make sure that you always have that mindset of trying to dig hard and give more. Whatever you do, give more. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. You have to give more. Stop playing with your life and give more. And you have to realize that everything that you want is on the side of the stuff that you don't want to do. But you have to do it anyway. And I always wake up in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. I don't want to do this crap ass workout, but I do it anyway. Why? Because I do it anyway. It has to get done. This podcast, it's not easy. People think, hey, you know, you just go ahead and you're just talking behind the mic. Man, there's a lot that goes into this stuff. But I do it anyway. Putting out the content that I put out. It's hard, but I do it anyway. Being a father, everybody knows this. Parenthood, guys that are parents, understand that it's a tough job, but I do it anyway. Saying the same thing over and over to your kids because they just don't get it, because they get amnesia every damn day. Telling them the same thing over and over. But what is it? It's a hard thing to do, but I do it anyway. Because the end result is much greater than how I feel temporarily. Anyway, same thing with the music, man. Music is rock bottom when it starts in silence. But then you start climbing out of that hole once you hear the first beat. That's just the same way that I look at things too whenever I'm putting a project together. I said right now, I'm at rock bottom. Once that first beat comes, start catching on to it, man. And next thing you know, I got a brush fire going on because we bringing the heat. But that's the way it is, man. Everything starts from rock bottom. Every idea starts rock bottom. So don't look at rock bottom as a bad thing, like, oh, I fell off and I hit rock bottom. Remember, we all start from rock bottom. And we get to a certain pinnacle, and it's up to us whether if we want to stay on that pinnacle or we want to get lazy. And then once we get lazy, where does our ass go back? Down back to rock bottom. So we have to make sure that we take account for that. Okay? But treat every day like rock bottom, because I know I do, because you're only as good as your last accomplishment. You know what I mean? So you got to take time to recertify your greatness. And the reason why I say that, man, is because I'm talking to you about a marathon I did back in March, and right now we're in the fall season. Like, we just hit fall. You know what I mean? So that was several months ago. I'm talking about 7 months ago. Okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is I haven't done anything lately. I got a whole bunch of medals from races that I've done, but that's in the past. Those miles are gone. Okay? What have you done today? So I will tell you this. And I will tell you this very clear. Okay? Recertify yourself to be the bad person that you were meant to be. I'm going to tell you like this, man. Definitely get after it. Don't rely and don't just rest on your laurels of what your past accomplishments were. Like, if you're sitting on a bachelor's degree and you have the potential to get your master's, go get your master's, man. If you got your master's and you got the potential to go get your specialist, man, go get your specialist, man. If you're sitting on a specialist and you know that the highest thing that you need to get will be that doctorate, go get your doctorate, man. Go ahead and get that dissertation done and make it happen. Do what you need to do, man. Keep leveling up. You know what I'm saying? Like me, I'm at rock bottom. Furthest thing that I've ever been able to run is a marathon. I was planning on running an ultra this year. I got hurt. But am I going to rest on that? No, I'm at rock bottom. So guess what? You know what's my next marathon right now? And technically the distance is not a marathon. Okay? But recognize this. I got to do a 5K. 5K is getting ran in November. I'm sorry, I keep getting texts. 5K is getting ran in November. Thanksgiving, I would be running a 5K. And I don't know how fast I'm going to run it. Normally, I could run a 5K anywhere from like 26 to 28 minutes. Maybe 29 minutes if I'm kind of dragging a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how long it's going to take me. But I will tell you this. The last 5K that I ran was 51 minutes. And that's when I had to shut it down. So that was like the last thing that I did. You think I'm happy about that? Hell no, I'm not happy about that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get after it. I'm going to do what needs to get done. So then that way I can try to achieve the best result possible. So what I'm doing right now, I'm doing a lot of weight training, calisthenics, trying to slim down my weight a little bit. So then that way my body can move a bit more efficiently. Obviously, as you get older, you want to make these adjustments. Okay? I'm in my mid-40s. I'm not going to train like I'm in my mid-20s. There's a total different dynamic there. I understand age and nutrition. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success to do what you need to do and use rock bottom as a launching pad. Look, man, I'm very grateful for you guys to check me out today. Listen to me, man. I mean, all I'm trying to do is trying to tell you guys that you're not alone, that anybody who acts like that they've made it, they haven't. Everybody is winging it. Just some do it better than others. So always remember that, man. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to go ahead and establish your processes and follow through and do what needs to get done so you can become better, you are achieving the best possible you that you can possibly get. Y'all take care, Godspeed, and you guys already know, be the goat, never a sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.